towards development annually, and China is the UK's second largest research collaborator. 11% of British research output included Chinese authors. So the audit was clear. The UK must develop new dialogues with China on issues like climate, development, global health and science, as well as on trade. And in doing so, we're driving our long-term interests in creating secure opportunities for UK PLC. Madam Deputy Speaker, we cannot deal with China's complexity unless we improve our capability to understand it for our national security and for secure trade and growth. The audit showed that under the last government, there was a profound lack of confidence in how to deal with China, and a profound lack of knowledge regarding China's culture, its history, and most importantly, its language. Madam Deputy Speaker, over the past year, I have found that far few Mandarins speak Mandarin. We are already taking action to address this, introducing a new China fast stream in the FCDO, creating an FCDO Global China Network, training over 1,000 civil servants on China policy in the past year. Enhancing these capabilities still further will be a core focus for the £209 million of FCDO Transformation Fund, announced in the National Security Strategy by my honourable friend a short time ago. The new strategy, which proceeds from this audit, will ensure that the government examines the full spectrum of interests in its decision-making processes and delivers the consistent approach which was so sorely lacking. Madam Deputy Speaker, anyone expecting a simple prescription on China is not living in the real world. The audit has painted a complex picture, but it has provided us with a clear way forward. The UK's approach to China will be founded on progressive realism, taking the world as it is, not as we would wish it to be. Like our closest allies, we will cooperate where we can, and we will challenge where we must. Never compromising on our national security, recognising the complexity of the world as it is, engaging confidently, carefully and pragmatically, delivering secure growth. These are the hallmarks of grown-up government, acting in the long-term national interest. I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the Foreign Secretary for advance sight of a statement, and I look forward to reading the audit and also receiving the detailed briefings that clearly are not able to be put in the public domain. Let's be clear, Madam Deputy Speaker. China thinks its way is the best way and the only way. Its leaders are on a quest, an international quest for global governance and for their frightening authoritarian model to supersede ours. Ours is one of democracy, openness and standing up for freedom and values. Madam Deputy Speaker, China has been ramping up its military with alarming conviction, including conventional, nuclear and space capabilities. It is a critical enabler of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. And we saw President Xi standing side by side with Putin in Moscow just weeks ago. So be in no doubt, China and Russia are collaborating across all domains to underestimate our very democratic freedoms and the West. Beijing tramples on the Sino-British Declaration in Hong Kong, threatens BNOs on British soil and has imprisoned Jimmy Lai, a British national, through this awful politically motivated trial. Beijing's unjustified aggression in the South China Sea is dangerous, and it unacceptably intimidates and challenges the sovereignty of its neighbours in the Indo-Pacific. It is consistently and constantly threatening the peace-seeking democracy of Taiwan while committing the most appalling human rights abuses in Xinjiang. And it applies hybrid and grey zone techniques against Britain, including malign cyber activity directed at our democratic institutions and sanctioning our own very members of Parliament, all while exploiting vulnerable countries through its Belt and Road Initiative. China also flagrantly brushes aside economic rules, steals intellectual property, and has developed sophisticated models to acquire strategic assets around the world. Despite all of this, Madam Deputy Speaker, it has taken the government a year to produce this audit, which seemingly fails to set out any kind of serious strategic framework. And I think it's fair to say we know why. Because the government, and in fact the Foreign Secretary has touched on this, has gone cap in hand to China to bail out its terrible handling of the British economy. It is setting up its closer ties, economic ties with China, while knowing very well that British businesses here are struggling, not just when it comes to competing against China, but actually struggling to absorb the weight of Labour's own regulatory costs in this country. So, can I ask the Foreign Secretary, and so far we've not seen it in this statement, whether or not he can name a single area where a measurable, tangible progress has been made in advancing critical British interests with China, whether it's on national security, economic practices, on climate, or on human rights. He did fail to mention the fact that members of this House have been sanctioned by China. And Madam Deputy Speaker, we have seen signs of naivety from the government consistently, if I may say so. Within a day of the Prime Minister meeting with President Xi, within one day of the Prime Minister meeting President Xi, he effectively held this as an opportunity to bring about a strong and consistent relationship, whereas surprises would be avoided. And within the next few days, 45 pro-democracy campaigners were jailed in Hong Kong, following a very harsh application of the draconian national security law. That's completely unacceptable. What is the Foreign Secretary's actual strategy to deter China from systematically extinguishing freedoms from Hong Kong? And will he commit to using the full weight of the government machine to do more to protect BNOs and Hong Kongers suffering what is an outrageous transnational repression in the UK, rather than, if I may say so, just issuing guidance and training? The government has constantly and suspiciously backed the application for this new China super embassy in London. Why is the Foreign Secretary and the government not showing the same backbone that the Irish counterparts and Australian counterparts have shown when they saw fit to block embassy planning applications from Russia that they deemed too risky for national security? Does the government have a practical strategy to deter Chinese efforts to capture Taiwan by military means or by stealth, or opposing the human rights abuses in Xinjiang? What is the Foreign Secretary's end goal, and what are the means of getting there? What will the Foreign Secretary do to find new critical mineral supply chains to reduce reliance on Chinese trade? And with that, Madam Deputy Speaker, what will the government do now to move Jimmy Lai's case onto an urgent footing, away from this complex consular case handling that it seems to have in the Foreign Office? Madam Deputy Speaker, the government also needs to urgently sort out some of the grave contradictions that have been mentioned in this statement, if I just may highlight a few. We've already seen in the Foreign Secretary's statement today, he speaks about the China audit underlining the extent of Beijing's support of the Kremlin. We don't question that and doubt that, but some action is needed. The statement also says that they are reiterating the approach that China must stay rooted both in international law and deterrence. How is that helping Jimmy Lai at this particular moment? And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I do just want to say that we will always support the security and the defence of our country, so the government must do much more when it comes up to keeping Britain safe from China.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I have to say, I know that the Right Honourable Lady can be pretty brazen, but a lecture from her about China policy should make even her blush. Her party oversaw more than a decade of division, inconsistency and complacency towards China. There was no strategy, there was no plan, and there was no sense of a national interest. The Intelligence and Security Committee, chaired by the Right Honourable Member for New Forest East, from her own party, said that the actions on China had left Britain severely handicapped in managing our future security. And the truth was that she was at the centre of it. Where was she during the ill-judged Cameron Osborne Golden Age? She was the Minister for the Treasury. Where was she during the humiliating Huawei U-turn. She was Home Secretary at that point. Under the Tories, they had their head in the sand. Under them, Britain's defences were weakened and our armed services hollowed out. It's a Labour government that's investing £600 million in our intelligence services to deal with those threats. It's a Labour government that's investing £290 million extra a year in our diplomatic capabilities in this area. It's a Labour government delivering the biggest increase in defence spending since the Cold War, and it's a Labour government making Britain secure at home and strong abroad. And can I just refer the Honourable Lady to page 28 of the Strategic Defence Review, which she clearly hadn't bothered to read, that makes clear that, of course, we understand that China is a sophisticated and persistent threat. She talks about the embassy. She should know, as Home Secretary, that it is a quasi-judicial decision that's been properly made by the Secretary at the Department for Communities and Local Government. She talks about Jimmy Lai. I met with Sebastian Lai last week. We've been raising this issue on every single occasion. A trial is ongoing. Let us see how it will complete. She raises transnational aggression. We're the ones updating our state threats legislation because they left the gaps and did nothing while they were in power. She raises the situation in Russia and the Chinese supplying Russia with use. Who has done the sanctions? 5 rounds